The following podcast is a presentation of This Is Infamous. Listener discretion is advised.
Ladies and gents, to another brand new episode of Intelligent Wrestling Conversation. Thanks for coming back and joining us as always. I'm your host, Billy Donnelly, and joined this week, I have a full Tom Nix episode for you.
Full-time Nixon.
Yeah. Look, I appreciate you sticking with us. Last week, I was on vacation, so we took a self-imposed hiatus. More imposed by me because going on a cruise ship seemed like a great idea. It was like my first vacation, my first full-blown vacation, just me and the missus for a whole week since we got married. So that's been going on for 8 years. So to have 1 week away without anything, without knowing anything, nothing that was going on, and just relaxing and drinking and hanging out in a piano bar, that was good for me. And now we're back. Now we're here. So
we're here.
Look, this has been a much hyped episode, primarily because it has taken about 2 weeks for me to finally get to watch the entire WrestleCircus Battle at the Big Top iPPV. I have watched it. I watched it in its entirety, and we're going to talk about it at length during this show. I know Tom was there. Tom's been excited. He's been waiting. He's been sitting on all his emotions and intelligent something to talk about this particular show. And we're finally getting there. It's finally happening. So for those of you who have exhibited patience to get to this point, congratulations. I have nothing else for you except those empty words. But we're going to achieve something, I guess. I don't know. Maybe. But look, I want to put it just on the back burner. Usually we have just the Tom Nix portion of the show, and we expand upon some deep indie wrestling that people don't necessarily know about, or wrestling for people to keep aware of, whether it's New Japan or deeper into Ring of Honor, things outside of the WWE landscape. And look, on this particular show, we're going to have the tiniest smidgen of WWE talk, way at the end. Everything else is around a bunch of other stuff. And we'll get to WrestleCircus in just a little bit. But I wanted Tom on for this entire show because Tom, I'm speaking like you're not even here. Tom is probably we call him the resident guru and our expert here on the show, but Tom probably watches more non-WWE wrestling than anyone I have ever met in my entire life ever. Tom watches a lot of everything.
I watch a lot of everything. And actually, as of the last couple of weeks, I've watched less and less WWE and been diving more into everything else around it. So but still, it's a lot of wrestling.
It is still a lot of wrestling. But so why I wanted you on the front end of the show was, including the back end of the show, why I wanted you on this entire episode was I wanted to talk into sort of this Twitter war of words, feud of sorts, that sort of got the wrestling community agitated and debating the state of independent wrestling, as well as sort of where wrestling seems to be going with, obviously more independent talent moving up into the mainstream and as a result dictating the direction of where wrestling is. So I wanted to talk about this Randy Orton, Rip Rogers, Will Ospreay thing that was happening, which was sort of
boy.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Well, yes, exactly. And I wanted you on it because of the fact that you watch so much independent wrestling. So ultimately what it was for those of you who are unfamiliar with who Rip Rogers is, and I would hope you wouldn't be because here on a show like Intelligent Wrestling Conversation, you should kind of be a little bit in the know. But just to brief you, in case that's a blind spot of wrestling for you, Rip Rogers used to wrestle in both the NWA and WCW, and right now he is currently an instructor in OVW, Ohio Valley Wrestling. So Rip Rogers tweeted sort of a critique of independent wrestling, and then Randy Orton retweeted it, which then sort of got a lot of attention onto his words, and then sort of got everybody weighing in with their opinions. So I'm going to read it real quick, word for word, and then we can get into the substance of it. So the tweet said, every indie match now, handshake, drawn-out move exchange, this is awesome chant, strike exchange, dive, no-sell indie strong style, dive, more strikes, no sells, dive, flippy-floppy sequence, dive, hit everyone with each other's finisher, then Humpty Dumpty, we all fall down. Fight forever chant. Rinse and repeat until every move is useless and means nothing. Dive. Take unsafe shot that looks like shit and hurts like hell, then roll up finish. Handshake and hug after match. Everyone's hands raised. All these guys chant. Go home and type on social media thanking your opponents and company for the match and telling others they should book these guys. Dive. And then Randy Orton just basically retweeted with dive and the entire substance of that. And then Will Ospreay started getting involved into it, talking about, his approach and sort of getting booked and making money. And then it sort of devolved into into an entire dispute over independent wrestling. So Tom, I know you were following this. A lot of this broke while I was on vacation, so I was playing catch up. But let me get at least your thoughts right out of the gate with Rip Rogers' critique of independent wrestling.
Okay, here's the bottom line, people. Wrestling is whatever you want wrestling to be. And if you want wrestling to be an athletic competition between two people where, headlocks don't hurt as much as pile drivers and flippy shit should be kind of banned because it's not realistic, that's a thing that wrestling can be, so you should enjoy it. If you want wrestling to be superheroes fighting each other and flying all around the ring and landing punches that humans shouldn't be able to land and getting up after taking massive amounts of damage, that's awesome, and you should watch that wrestling. And this is a conversation that has been around for a while, but this is the exact same thing that happened last year when Ricochet and Will Ospreay had their Best of the Super Juniors match. And it was, I think it was a big Van Vader got on the internet and complained that, this is a ballet, it's not wrestling. And he's right. It's a lot of choreography. It's a lot of timing. It's a lot of, cool looking moves that don't technically have a lot of impact in terms of physical damage. They just look awesome. And that's a valid form of wrestling. So shut up. And that's my opinion on this whole thing is there are promotions out there that focus very, very strongly on realistic, offense-based, damage-based wrestling. There are promotions out there that focus on acrobatics and fancy footwork and, that kind of stuff. There are promotions out there that focus much more on characters or comedy. I mean, shit, over WrestleMania weekend, I watched a bunch of people dressed as giant pieces of fruit and monsters that wrestled each other into buildings. And the wrestling wasn't good, but it was awesome to be there because wrestling is whatever the fuck you want wrestling to be. So my take on this is if people want to dive, let them dive. It sucks that maybe they might be hurting by the time they're 45, and hopefully in their mid-30s they kind of figure out they can't do this forever. But let them do wrestling the way they want to do wrestling. Wrestling is an art form. Will Ospreay, at the end of his last match with Ricochet at this year's Battle of Super Juniors, did a 3-minute promo where he talked about, not really a direct response to that dive thing, but it was definitely inspired by it. And just letting people know that he does what he does because he wants to express himself. And this is how he wants to express himself. And he's appreciative that people pay him. He's appreciative that people show up and cheer for him because obviously they like what he's doing. And he's getting paid and making money and is doing what he wants to do from an artistic standpoint. So I think there for several people, there's going to be people that like wrestling a certain way. There's going to be people that hate wrestling a certain way. And yeah, if you look at those like the new school fast-paced, super heroic type of wrestling, I can understand why someone who grew up watching Ric Flair or grew up watching, Sting and all that, all the stuff in the 80s and the NWA and all that stuff would be like, this isn't good. It's just a distraction from the storytelling. And that's a completely valid take on it. But there's also a whole new section of people that have never watched wrestling in their entire lives that are watching it now because it mirrors movies and mirrors television and mirrors things that they haven't seen before. And they're watching wrestling. And one day they're going to discover Ric Flair, and they're going to discover Tully Blanchard, and they're going to discover Dusty Rhodes, and they're going to love it because they got a gateway into it by seeing these crazy people do crazy things. And if Lio Rush is a gateway to Dusty Rhodes, man, we should all love each other and be happy that we all love wrestling. So Randy Orton, shut the fuck up. Let me watch. You do you. Let Will do Will. Wrestling is for everybody. That's my hot take. John Cena out.
I mean, look, we'll get into Lio Rush and Will Ospreay later because there's enough to talk about them on this particular show as it relates to the homework. My takeaway from this is that I thought Rip Rogers and Randy Orton had valid points.
They do.
But moving from there, when you paint with a broad brush, you're going to get the whole house. Okay, so to sort of
is that a real thing?
It is now.
That up?
I just made it up. I just made it up.
You heard it here first, people.
I mean, it does make sense.
You get the whole house.
Yeah, I mean, it does make sense, does it not? But look, I mean, it's hard to qualify every indie match as this. Is there a fair share of it that you could literally blueprint as this? Absolutely. There are plenty of matches that we have watched in recent weeks that fit this to a T. And those are the ones that typically I do not like. But as we,
guess what, Billy, you're right.
Yes. No. And my point is that as we have said time and time again, wrestling is for everyone, and that there is no one way to do wrestling. And this kind of sort of goes back to the IWC quote unquote and what smart marks bitch about and complain about a lot of the times is that they want wrestling to be one way, the way that they like it, without really putting into perspective the fact that there are other people there in the arena, in the hall, in the stadium, whatever, who get something else out of other things. And it sort of goes back to, being a movie lover myself, not every movie is made for me. Not every movie is meant for me to like it. There are movies made for other people. Same way here. There is wrestling that exists for other people. It's not all for me.
I also want to add that there are people, it's not just the audience who can enjoy it, the people who are making the wrestling, who are performing the wrestling, who are writing the wrestling, are inspired by things that didn't exist back in the day, or they're taking inspiration from totally different realms of entertainment. Like I remember Will Ospreay talking about how he was playing Assassin's Creed, and he was like, oh, that was cool what that guy did. I could probably do that. So he did it because he wanted to do it. And he's pulling video games, which is a huge, point of interest and a huge market for tons of people, and saying, hey, if you think video games are cool, why don't you watch this wrestling? Because all the shit that you see yourself do or you're making these characters do, me and my buddies are doing in real life in front of you. Mm-hmm. And that's like the people who are actually making the wrestling, doing the wrestling, promoting the wrestling are starting to be inspired by things that have nothing to do with wrestling. And that's awesome. Again, it's not for everyone. A lot of people are going to be like, I don't want my wrestling to be video games. I want my wrestling to be competition.
So don't watch it.
And that's completely
valid.
Don't
watch that then.
Completely valid. But there are so many things for you to take inspiration from, and there are so many. Like I said, if you want to consider an individual wrestler an artist, which they are, but unfortunately or fortunately, they have to collaborate with another artist or several artists to make it happen. You can't just have a one-man show unless you're Kota Ibushi. And taking inspiration from a film, taking inspiration from a video game, taking inspiration from a painting, taking inspiration from a conversation that your friends had, and working it into your quote-unquote routine is awesome. It's awesome that you can express yourself in that way. It's awesome that wrestling can be that outlet for you in any way, shape, and form. So, yeah, there is no one type of wrestling that's going to do it for everybody, but wrestling is changing because the wrestlers are changing.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're also doing what it is that they like, and the way that the way that I can sum this up properly is a few years back I had the opportunity of sitting down and having an interview with Michael Bay. Okay, divisive filmmaker. There are people who like Michael Bay films, and there are people that can't stand Michael Bay films. But Michael Bay films aren't for everyone. And I got the sense after sitting down and talking to him, I wish that like everybody had like 10 minutes to sit down and talk with Michael Bay, particularly people who don't like Michael Bay films. Because what I realized from talking to Michael Bay about the films he makes is that he makes the films that he himself would like to watch. And that doesn't mean those films are for everyone. He's making something that entertains him, something that speaks to his sensibilities. And as a result, there are going to be people who are on the wavelength of Michael Bay who go, I like Transformers 47, and as a result, I'm going to go see it, and I think it's awesome. And there are going to be other people who are like, Transformers 47, what a piece of shit. I would never see that in a million years. And guess what? They're both right. They don't have to agree. They don't have to come to a consensus. Somebody could say, well, I like Transformers and I'm going to go watch it. And somebody could say, I'm never going to watch this ever. And they're both okay. It's not a zero-sum game where like somebody goes, no, you have to admit that it's a piece of shit even though you watch it. And the other person's like, no, you have to admit that you might watch it if you didn't hate it so much. Like it doesn't make any sense. Just watch what you like. And move from there, I mean, look, the one thing, and we've talked about this before, the one thing that I think is a valid criticism from here that I think stands up and I think is something to at least be aware of is when these sort of matches, as sort of laid out in this tweet, become the full norm, and then as a result, they sort of re-educate the audience, because I think much like a Michael Bay, going back to Michael Bay, if every film was a Michael Bay film, that would be bad. But if same thing here, if every film was sort of like, or every match was sort of like this, what it does is fans get desensitized to it, and they get sort of their education of what wrestling is becomes different, and then it's just a matter of like, it's constantly trying to up the ante, to up the bar, where no move ever means anything, and nothing ever sticks, and all you're doing is chanting, "This is awesome," while hoping for the next high spot batch.
So, and this is just a personal thing. Mm-hmm. I don't like the "This is awesome" chants.
Well,
I think they are. I think
so played out.
I mean, I don't want to be a super hipster about it, but like, I guess I feel like if you like something, I don't like the meta commentary of it. Like, as an audience, we should be involved in the match, and if we like something, we should be rooting harder for the guy we want to win. We should be rooting more against the person we don't want to win. Like, I like Fight Forever. I think it's a great chant because it's referencing what's happening in the ring, and we don't want this to stop.
Also highly unrealistic.
Also highly unrealistic.
Highly unrealistic.
Highly unrealistic. But like, I, as a fan, and again, this is my opinion, doesn't mean you should all stop saying this is awesome, but I feel like you should be spending, if you like something, let the people who are doing it know. Either chant for them, or like at WrestleCircus, which we'll talk to, when stuff gets really, really, really good, the audience will start chanting WrestleCircus over and over again because they're happy that this is happening and they're happy that company exists to provide this type of entertainment. Those kind of chants, I think, add to the match more than saying this is awesome. I think there's I think the audience should have a role to play, and that's to bolster or taunt the people in the ring that they like or don't like, and support the company, support the act of wrestling. So again, I'm not saying, guys, stop saying this is awesome. I'm saying there's lots of other things you could put your voices into that I think will inspire the people in the ring to work even harder than saying this is awesome.
No, see, I'll make the leap. Don't say this is awesome anymore, okay? Just don't say it anymore. When everything is awesome, nothing is awesome, because now it's all the same. And look, and I agree, that goes all the way back to the ECW days. That was the chant. ECW was the chant. And it sort of took on a life of its own from everything there. But it was because ECW was its own unique animal, and that was the only place you could sort of see that stuff at the time. And as a result, chanting ECW was sort of like this bond of, yes, we support this vision of what wrestling is. And I also agree, chanting for a particular performer, either giving them heat or giving them or getting them over, that is better than sort of acknowledging the performance angle of it, of like, well, this is awesome. Because if you went to a movie or a play, you wouldn't chant, this is awesome, after somebody sang like a song. You just give them a standing ovation later for their particular performance. Yeah, right. It's a weird, it is a weird thing. But I at this point now, I'd rather you find something else to chant better than awesome, or just something else. Because at this point now, awesome doesn't really mean anything. You have totally taken all of the meaning out of awesome. Where now awesome is just like, it's fine.
Which is a danger. I can agree with that as well. And again, like I said, like if all wrestling starts to be one style, whether that be hyperactive flippy shit or not, then wrestling loses some of its appeal. So I do hope the people who want to express themselves that way continue and are able to do that, as long as they actually can without hurting themselves or ending their careers prematurely. But just like it was before, just like it is now, wrestling is evolving constantly. And right now, superheroes and video games are the coolest goddamn thing in the world. So why is it a surprise that the people who grew up playing video games, reading comics, and watching superhero movies, Spider-Man came out in 2001 when Will Ospreay was like 10. So, why would he not be performing the stuff that he watches and loves, Now, as the years go on, I think you will start seeing a different shift in how wrestling is done. But again, the point stands. Wrestling is for everyone, and that means people watching and people performing. Exactly. And whatever things you want to bring to the table that make you happy as a performer and as a fan, that's what we need in wrestling. We need to stop this weird thing that Vince McMahon started, because no one loves and hates wrestling more than Vince McMahon. That wrestling is a lesser art form, or wrestling is kind of a guilty pleasure, or whatever it is. No, wrestling is awesome, and you should be happy that you love it, and you should be happy that people still actively want to be in it. I mean, imagine that. Imagine the fact that Will Ospreay and Marty Scurll and Ricochet, all people who aren't even 30 years old yet, like Leo Rush, are out there doing wrestling still. They didn't go into something else because wrestling's an embarrassment. They went into wrestling because they love wrestling. And the more people that unabashedly love a form of art and a form of athletic wonder, the more we're going to get awesome people who want to do something different and unique with that paintbrush. The more we embrace it as a whole and the more we push it forward, the more it's going to treat us well back. And the future of wrestling, as far as I'm concerned, is awesome. We just need, sorry, Billy, I said awesome, but we need to make sure that we're not stuck in this. Well, my tastes are better than your tastes, and this one is not exactly the best. Just don't watch it. focus on the stuff you like, tweet about the stuff you like, attend live wrestling, pay for the shows, go to them, buy the IPPVs, support the people that are making it, because this is the future. Independent wrestling, as far as I'm concerned, is the actual future of wrestling. People are having more fun on the indies. They're putting on better matches. They're getting paid almost as well, if not better, than they would in the big leagues, depending on star power. That is where this is going. And I'm not saying the WWE needs to go away. It doesn't, because it provides a great good for the wrestling.
And it never will.
And it never will. But the future of wrestling is in the independents. And the more they're supported and the more they are pushed and the more they are cherished, the more will start popping up. The more alternatives you'll have to, one man's vision on the WWE, which is, again, sometimes it's great. Sometimes it's really not great, just like everything. But the more we focus on the independents, the more they're going to grow, the more opportunities are going to be, the more diverse it's going to be, the more people will come in and start being wrestlers as opposed to not being wrestlers, telling different stories, making different characters, doing different things. And that's where wrestling is really going to thrive, is live wrestling in front of a small audience. So that's my soapbox, y'all. Support independence.
Well, and plus, let's not forget, like, even going back to the WWE machine, you look at the guys who are on the top of that, a lot of them started there and cut their teeth in the independents. Like, that's where they got. You look at people like Kevin Owens or Sami Zayn or AJ Styles or Seth Rollins. These are all guys that they didn't fall from the sky. So this is guys like Leo Rush, guys like Will Ospreay. These are people that at some point in time, eventually, will probably make the leap, and they will just carry the torch into the future. The one thing I want to say, because I think you said it perfectly, Tom, the one last dot I want to put on this thing is that, look, all wrestling is different, as evidenced by the House of Horrors match that we talked about weeks ago. If all wrestling was like that, I don't even want to consider it. But just imagine all wrestling was like the House of Horrors. You would just watch something else. So yeah, wrestling is a variety show. There's lots of different things there for you to like. And also, don't hate watch. Just like what you like and move on. Not everything has to be for you. As that includes Randy Orton, and it includes Will Ospreay. And apparently it also includes Bubba Ray Dudley and Rip Rogers and a bunch of other people that threw their opinion into this thing. So look, well, with that said, let's move into WrestleCircus. Since we're talking a lot about independent wrestling, we're going to get into a giant independent wrestling promotion that took place on iPPV the same night as the horrible House of Horrors match. That took place. Which Billy Donnelly still, despite my warnings, watched live. I did watch live. I'll never do it again, but I did watch it. So look, I did. We talked about this last show and how I had trouble getting it. The people from WrestleCircus did get back to me as a result of the miscommunication on the website and not being able to see it. They did grant me a free month of their on-demand service, so I was able to go in and watch WrestleCircus Battle at the Big Top. Now, considering that I used my free month sort of later, I should be able to get into the Lucha show, Lucha Carnival or whatever the hell it's called, towards the end of the month as well. So we'll talk about more WrestleCircus in the future. But I do want to talk at length about the card, or at least a decent amount about the card, including Tom, if I'm not mistaken, I believe you made a cameo in the show. Oh, yeah. No, I played a very important part in the hardcore match. Yes. I was like, I think that's Tom. And he's giving a chair assist. This is not awesome. It's something else. Violating your own rule. I caught myself. But look, I guess overall, because you were in attendance, I watched it, and I'm going to tell you, it took me a while to watch it. It's like a 4-hour show. I had some buffering issues, so it took a little bit longer. Granted, there were lots of people in my house streaming at the time, so it probably just slowed down. So ultimately, it came out to probably be what felt like a 32-hour show. But I did watch it in its entirety, and I think the place to start would probably be sort of what is considered the match of the night. This is something that was up on the homework for this particular week, for anybody who didn't get to watch the entire WrestleCircus iPay-per-view. And that was the 6-man tag match, Shane Strickland, Desmond Xavier, and Leo Rush versus Ohio is for Killers, which is Sami Callihan and Jake and Danny Christ. That was the match that you were assigned to watch because it was out there on YouTube for free. All you had to do is do a search and it would come up. And this is a match that you were questionable with my standing on because you didn't know whether or not I would dig this particular match. This wasn't the match that you thought I would hate.
I've definitely assigned homework that is very, I don't want to say full of flippy shit, but it's definitely not exactly the most psychologically sound. It's just really fun. And most of the time you come back with, you crazy bitch.
Yeah. Most of the time I came back with, I didn't like it. So I sat and I watched this particular match, and I was curious by it because of the hype that had gone into it. And then considering our discussion last week about how Sami Callihan was not really my taste, I was not skeptical, but I was intrigued by how this match may turn out. And I will tell you, this is a pretty incredible match. I know you have regarded it as, I believe, the greatest match you have ever witnessed while in live attendance. If I'm not understating it, I believe it's somewhere along those lines.
Yes, and granted, that's also immediately after I watched the match and talked to all the competitors in it. So, I would probably still stand by that. It would certainly be, if not the top, certainly one of the top matches I've ever seen live. But again, as we all know, being there live, especially in the front row, is vastly different than watching it on a computer screen.
Yes, and look, and you're going strictly on the emotions of the show. I will tell you, the commentary throughout the show, I don't think did the product any particular favors. Now, look, we had Rich Bocani back on the show a couple of weeks ago. I thought in the beginning he felt like he was a little bit unfamiliar with the product. Towards the end, when he just sort of went with what he knows, calling moves, not necessarily trying to sell the storylines, but calling moves, letting himself be taken over by sort of the enthusiasm and emotion of the moment, I thought he really came into his own throughout the show. Lance Hoyt, on the other hand, yeah, he was sort of a detractor throughout. I know he's hurt. I know they wanted to sort of do right by him and get him a payday, but felt a little too snarky for the show, a little bit too inside baseball at times, knowing what goes on behind the curtain. So as a result, when you have that sort of mindset and you're not really just giving yourself over to the viewer, you're sort of just like, it felt like JBL light.
I'm glad I don't have to hear commentary.
Maybe not that far, but it felt like it wasn't helping get the viewer into the product. If anything, it felt more distracting at times. But look, this match right out of the gate. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I take this time to say officially on the record, fuck JBL? That's it. I'm done.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
Hey, JBL, I'm glad you blocked me on Twitter. You're a fucking piece of shit.
All right. So, and Lance Hoyt will now block me. So look, here is the deal. When you have these matches, and we've talked about sort of my taste before, of just bedlam and chaos, sometimes it's a little bit tough to follow, and as a result, it can be sometimes hard to get into the moment of the match. But I found with this particular match, just sort of starting out as a crazy street fight, and sort of the bedlam moving from there, I was kind of into it because everything seemed to lead to something else. It wasn't just chaos for chaos's sake. Every bit of chaos seemed to lead to more chaos. And as a result, you sort of had sequences that fed off of one another. And it didn't feel choreographed either. They felt organic in the moment. And I think that's sort of the big thing, is that they don't feel planned out in advance. They felt, these 6 guys felt like in the moment they wanted to hurt one another, which I think lends to the authenticity and legitimacy of the match. So having that go about, and then just sort of, you have innovative offense all over the place. It wasn't just high spots after high spots. You had guys selling the moves too. So as a result, it wasn't like, oh, look, I just kicked out of a power bomb and then I delivered my own running buckle bomb to you as well, followed by a handspring back elbow. And you're like, that, how the hell did that happen if you just got power bombed? But I thought that was one of the things that helped, is that while I wish there was more selling to a point, there was enough selling to make the moves have impact and to make those moves then count. It wasn't just moves for move's sake. It was, yes, that looks cool, but that guy got wrecked by that. As a result, I'm on board. So yes, these 6 dudes put on a hell of a show, and that includes Sami Callihan, who I'm not even a big fan of. I just paid Sami Callihan a passive-aggressive compliment. So look, I thought this match was great. I agree this was the match of the night, and anybody who still hasn't seen it should by all means go out of their way to watch these 6 individuals come together and make magic in the 6-man tag match.
Oh, it was awesome. I mean, like I said, like it was there's definitely stuff to nitpick, and to be perfectly honest, I haven't watched it back since I saw it live.
Do it on mute. No Lance Hoy commentary. Do it on mute.
Oh, do it on mute. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I haven't watched it back since I saw it live because I kind of don't want to see it any other way than the memories I have in my head. You know, like it was such an exhilarating experience, and so like it was just so fun. I mean, every single person in that arena, small room was
it's like a closet.
On their feet. They were all standing. Everybody was standing by the end of that match. It was like I said, it was the place to be. Like if you were in Austin, Texas that night and weren't there, you fucked up. Like it was the place to be. So I'm sure there's lots of nitpicking that can be done because again, a lot of those matches, you know, psychology is not always thought of, but from a pure enjoyment, just the total experience, I like I said, I just kind of don't want to revisit it. I just want to live in that space in my brain that's occupied by the 30 minutes that match was going on.
Well, I mean, in full disclosure too, and in all honesty, I do want to say that having watched it, everyone was standing and on their feet. Because half the match did place amongst the chairs, so
yes,
so there really was no place to sit for like half the match. So I just want to put that out there for people like they stood the whole time. They kind of were forced to. So there is that just to put out there. But look, a couple of takeaways I thought from this match. Number one, Lio Rush is a beast, and I could watch this guy every day for the rest of my life wrestle, because not only
Lio Rush is he's gonna I mean, he's already kind of a big deal. He's gonna be a big deal by 2018.
Yes, I mean the only thing that is always going to be the knock on a guy like that is the size, and where he sort of ranks if you're looking at, you know, like a big picture, like a main event picture, because they're going to say, well, the guy looks really small. And he is. He's a small guy. I mean, he's built, but he's not a monster. He's not a Brock Lesnar kind of
he's
guy.
He's about 5'5".
Yeah,
he's about 5'5", 150.
Yeah, he's not Brock Lesnar, okay? So people are going to, there are going to be the people who like just write him off as like, he's just like a cruiserweight type. But this dude is quick. He's extremely fast. And I sent you a message after I watched it, and I was like, this guy must be incredible to see live, because even as fast as he looks on TV, it cannot possibly do him justice in real life. Sort of like how I felt watching Samoa Joe. Like, Samoa Joe is quick, but when you watch Samoa Joe live, you get a real appreciation for just how fast he is. So Lio Rush is one guy that I took away from this, and I was like, man, I want more Lio Rush in my life, because he's just a phenomenal worker, and he can go and he can do lots of incredible and innovative things. And yeah, you start adding the selling to it a little bit more, and I think this guy's going to be putting on 5 stars from here to Kingdom Come. The other thing that I want to take about from this match, and no, it's not Sami Callihan. I didn't really change all that much on him. But the Chris, I was really impressed by. These dudes are brutal, and they are rough.
Yes.
And they are a tag team. I mean, it's very difficult at times to find good tag teams because everyone has their eye on the solo prize. But when you have 2 guys who work really well in tandem together and put that together as their ticket moving forward, you get something special. And these guys, I think,
I just got one thing to say about that, Billy. Yeah. Say yeah all day, all night.
Exactly. And you know what a huge fan I am of the Revival and what those guys do. These guys remind me so much of them. I only watched them this one time. But they are tough. They are rough. They want to beat people down and hurt them. And that goes a long way, 1, to getting superb heel heat, but 2, to filling a void that a lot of people don't want to take. So in that particular match between Lio Rush and the 2 Chris, I mean, that's half the match right there. I mean, everybody else wasn't just there like for window display. They put on a good show as well. But those 3 individuals, I thought, really helped elevate the match and take it to the next level.
Oh yeah, no, they're an excellent team. I saw them for the first time at WrestleMania weekend. They were at the Pro Wrestling Revolver show, and I'm super glad they got to come to WrestleCircus. But they're both really, really excellent. Like you said, they've got a style. They work well together. They just have they're just a great unit together. So I talked to Jake after the show, and he said they're pretty much already re-signed for a couple WrestleCircus dates. So we'll see when that actually is. But I'm very excited to watch them. Speaking of excellent tag teams, what did you think of Extra Talented, Aaron Solo and Ricky Starks?
Now, here's what I will say about Extra Talented, as well as this entire match. So it was a triple threat match under Lucha Libre rules.
Space Monkey.
Yeah, you had the Boys versus Space Monkey and Flip Gordon, who is now exclusive to Ring of Honor, by the way.
AKA Monkey Flip.
Yeah, yes, versus Extra Talented. This for me was the first match that really came alive on the card. And we'll get into sort of how the entire show was laid out prior to that and in its entirety. But this was, I think, the 5th match on the card, and everything sort of before that wasn't really grabbing me. I was watching it and I was like, this is fine. But this was the first match where I really got into it. Number 1, I thought Extra Talented is really solid heels. Okay, Space Monkey is great to watch. Okay, lives up to the hype. Lives up because he's so strange. And I will tell you, Rich Bocchini had like the entire backstory down cold. Okay, he knew it. Probably because we've been talking about Space Monkey so much on this show that he couldn't help. Rich. Yeah, he couldn't help absorb, but by osmosis. And Flip Gordon really surprised the hell out of me because this guy can do some really special things. And the Boys,
he is.
And the Boys,
they're good wrestlers.
Yes,
they're good.
They're not just there to make Dalton Castle's entire shtick come together. They can actually do stuff in the ring. So like I said, this was the first match that really came alive for me. It was entertaining as hell. And it was fun. It was just fun. And once again, guys sold, okay? Guys worked their ass off. There was a bit of a story to kind of tell because nobody wanted to let Space Monkey into this friggin' match. And I enjoyed the hell out of this match. So, look, I look forward to seeing more Flip Gordon in Ring of Honor. Extra Talented, I know they keep sort of got diminished a little bit by a horrible post-match interview with, once again, Lance Hoyt, who I don't think did them favors.
Ricky Starks took that interview and cut a fire-ass promo out of it, though.
Yes. He was the one I was most impressed of with the tag team, especially on the mic, because he was passionate. He was fired up. You felt like he was in the moment. Like he was, once again, treating this as if it was a real, not a performance, which is a big thing to getting wrestling over with fans, is having them suspend their disbelief and come along on the ride with you. And I thought he did a fantastic job in the very little window that he was given. But look, between Extra Talented and and you look at some of the other tag teams, I guess, throughout WrestleCircus. Number one, like the Chris, I want to see the Chris and Extra Talented go head to head, if we can, at some point in time. But I thought this was a really solid match. I wish this would have been the match to sort of kick off the card, because I think it would have set the right tone moving forward. But all 6 individuals who were in this match, I thought put on a hell of a job.
Oh yeah, no, I think it was an excellent match. I am surprised that the matches up front didn't do much for you. Although, what was the first match of the show? Well, first match was Ethan Page versus Candice LeRae, right?
Yes, Go ahead.
No, I mean, I think the match is good, but I think Ethan Page is just heel supreme, is what I think.
Yes, he is. And I know Ethan Page will be coming down to my neck of the woods in a matter of time for Ronin Pro Wrestling. So I'm going to maybe try and head on out there to be able to see him in person be an absolute dirtbag. But
total shit.
Look, coming from sort of somebody who in my teenage years watched the Attitude Era, I now, as an older, more mature gentleman, have weird feelings about intergender matches. I have seen sort of women get beat to hell during the Attitude Era and like nobody bat an eye about it. But now we're like, culturally, we're in a different place. It feels weird for a guy to get in the ring and purposely beat up on a woman. When I was 15 or 16, you were like, yeah, whatever, which probably explains a lot of the problems we have in the world right now. But watching it now sort of like purposefully set up did feel a little bit odd. And as a result, the second match sort of piggybacked off of that, because you had sort of an intergender tag match with Colt Cabana and Delilah Doom versus ACH and Christy James. And look, I know you're a big Delilah Doom fan, and I was waiting for it too. I was ready to go on board with you, Tom, on this. And I'm not knocking Delilah Doom. I'm not. Okay, I want to see more of her. But I thought Christy James really rough around the edges. And as a result,
she's not very good.
Yeah, I know. I was trying to be polite. I was trying to not give a passive aggressive.
Sorry, WrestleCircus people. Yeah. I know you love her, but she's not very good yet.
She has a good look. I'll give you that. She has a good look. But in the ring, I mean, okay, I'd like to send her back to cook for a little bit longer. But yeah, so as a result, that match didn't really come together. And like, I've seen Colt Cabana before sort of do his thing, and it's, it's fine for some people. It doesn't bother me, but I'm not crazy about his persona. So that match piggyback with the first intergender match. I was kind of like, come on, WrestleCircus. We got like 3.5 hours to go. Let's pick it up here a little bit. And then the third match was kind of awkward. So the third match, you had Davey Boy Smith Jr. versus Moose, which I thought it had a slow start and a decent build, and then an incredibly awkward and abrupt finish.
Yeah, a little bit. The finish was a little odd, but like I said, I thought you would enjoy that match because they really did work a very old school work a body part, sell the body part match. Yes. Even though it was, but like again, my biggest complaint about that entire show is that it felt like the sequencing of the matches was just not as well thought through as it could have been. Like they they positioned a lot of stuff like early on the card that would have been a little better later, and it didn't flow as well as I would have liked it to flow. But I thought all the individual matches were good to great, but I did think the flow of the whole event was a little weird, especially at the start.
Yeah, and that's sort of why it really took a while for me to get into the show, because even the Davey Boy Smith Moose match does have a little bit more of that old school flavor that I typically like. But right out of the gate, I was sort of taken out of it because Moose had what I would describe as some of the weak ass knife edge chops I have ever seen in a match. And it was distracting. I've seen people just haul off and just belt somebody. And this was like I don't want to hurt Davey Boy Smith Jr. because he might break. So to have like those two big guys who are supposed to be sort of powerful and strong and have one half of them kind of taking something off their fastball felt a little bit odd to me. So you have those three matches, and then the hardcore match that includes the Trash Man versus Jordan Lennox with the Tom Mix chair assist, by the way.
Yeah. Superhero.
And then you have like Faux Sabu Leva Bates show up like for no reason out of nowhere. Those four matches combined just were not doing anything for me. And the Trash Man it is what it is. But I thought to have those four matches sort of lumped together, I think didn't do them any favors. I think they really needed to sort of spread out, because then once you sort of got later into the show and you had, I think, better matches, better complete matches, I think they could have used maybe the break to sort of come down from those really the high points of the overall card. So, look, a couple other takeaways I can give from the overall card before we get into the bit of homework that we still got to cover from last week. Matt Sydal and Sammy Guevara, I thought was a tremendous match. I'm a huge Sammy Guevara fan just after watching this one match. I look forward to him challenging Brian Cage at some point down the line, which we know is going to happen, because I think that can be a real stellar contest.
So I don't know. I'm not sure if it got on the feed, but after the main event, Brian Cage announced to the crowd that he was going to accept Sammy's challenge for June 24th.
Yes.
So the June show is Sammy versus Brian for the title,
which I am now looking forward to. Because look, the main event I thought was okay. Brian Cage versus John Morrison I thought was okay. I thought the match got a bit ridiculous towards the end. I don't know that it ever really fully recovered after John Morrison almost killed himself. But it also felt just a little too overbooked as we got towards the end. Melissa Santos came out of nowhere. A ref bump. It started to come off the rails a little bit towards the end, and plus following that 6-man tag, it was in a tough spot to sort of deliver. But look, I'm a John Morrison fan. I like John Morrison as a heel. I think that's when he's at his best. The fact that he thinks Boone the Bounty Hunter is like God's gift to cinema just makes him all the more awful a person. But I wish that match would have come together a little bit better. I think their styles just clashed at times. So there was that. What else can I take away from Scorpio Sky versus Dirty Andy Dalton versus Mr. 450? Can somebody please sell something in this match? Just one thing. just somebody please sell one thing in this match. I will say, good heel heat for Scorpio Sky in the cheat win with his like director friend. I like that. I like that little character.
That was a good gimmick. Yeah, I thought that character was really interesting, and I'm sure he'll keep showing back up. But yeah, I thought that was a good gimmick for that guy to have.
Yes, and apparently people in Austin really hate Los Angeles. So the fact that he just
people in Austin hate California because all the people that used to live there now live in Austin and they're taking up all the roads. So yeah, just say the word California to Austin and everyone will be like, they'll just act like someone farted in the room.
So I wish there was some selling in it. There was like no selling whatsoever, like just none at all. And my eyes just start glazing over when I watch something like that. Taya Valkyrie and Rachel Ellering, I thought was a really strong match that was then ruined by John Morrison for no reason whatsoever. No real explanation given why he was out there. There was sort of this weak connection that maybe he had something going with Taya Valkyrie, but why would you cost your girlfriend the title? It's like one of those WWE logic leaps where you go,
yeah. It was very strange because like normally schmaz finishes aren't really a WrestleCircus thing, so it was very odd to do that, and I'm not sure if it was, just to, I don't want to say protect Taya because she is awesome, and maybe she just didn't want to. And see, now I'm putting it on her, which I don't think is true at all. It might have just been a decision to be like, hey, there's maybe more to this story. Like we've got her for a couple months, and we want to build Taya versus Rachel up a little bit because it's awesome. Like she's in a tag match next month with Taya and Tessa Blanchard are teaming together, and maybe it's just like I said, maybe it's one of those things where they just want to build her up a little more and make her more of a threat. Because like if John Morris is sticking around and she's sticking around, maybe that was just a hey, we'll keep doing this because the matches are going to be great. Because I agree with you, there was no reason why she couldn't have just been pinned or even been pinned weirdly or whatever. But at the same time, it did solidify, because I'm not sure if anyone knew, at the last event, the WrestleCircus South by Southwest show, Morrison was probably just as over as Sammy, who he fought to get the #1 contendership, and he didn't seem to do anything outwardly heelish. So maybe it was just to establish, hey guys, in the main event, there's clearly a bad guy. Yeah. Even though he did that himself later, maybe it literally was just a way for Rachel to retain, but also set up the fact that Johnny was going to be one of the biggest shit heels in the company, which I don't mind. I like that because, again, like from the main event perspective, like you said, it had a lot to live up to from the six-man, and I think the six-man should have been the main event, but John Morrison single-handedly saved that match from being a disaster because of how big of a shithead he was during that match. Like he was such a good heel and such a good character that people were really, really into seeing him get his ass beat.
Yes.
So that main event could have been not a disaster. It's not like those guys can't work because they both can, but it certainly had a lot to live up to, and I think everyone was kind of ready for it to be sort of underwhelming. But Johnny Morrison's or John Morrison's heel persona, probably piggybacking off of his interference earlier in the night, really got people into that match. I mean, we wanted to see him get absolutely wrecked.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, maybe there is a longer term plan, so I'm not one to criticize the short term just because but it did for such a really strong match to end so oddly. I thought it sort of undercut all the work that both Taya and Rachel had done to that point, because it was to that point, I think, one of the better matches on the card. And then the other match to discuss briefly, hopefully much more briefly than this train wreck went on for, Kikutaro and Jarvis Cottonbelly. Intriguing at first, but just went on way too long.
That was definitely that was a mistake to put on so late, because it was fun and interesting. It was a good time,
but for like 2 minutes.
But like you said, it went on too long, and it just wasn't the right time to put that match on.
I mean, this is a 4-hour show. Like, it's a 4-hour show. Like, you you don't have to go the whole 4 hours. Okay, you can go out a little early. Like I'm sure people by the end of the night were like, can we speed this up a little bit? I would like to get a good night's sleep.
I do wish that WrestleCircus would drop from 10 to 11 matches down to about 8. Because I think they could give some matches a little extra time if they needed it to. They could still have a 30-minute break in between and still get everyone out of there in 3.5 hours. You don't need to have a 4-hour show. Not that I've ever really minded being there for 4 hours, but I do think 3 to 3.5 is much more palatable. And I think it's just as simple as dropping a match or two. Just don't do it, or put it on the pre-show, which, because the people who are watching on IPPV don't see this, but every time before the show starts, they have a showcase of local wrestling promotions, like all Austin local talent, of kind of like their developmental shows. They actually bring out wrestlers from those local promotions or like those local training schools, and they put on like 2 matches before the actual card starts. So you can see like local people that are coming up that are working on their skills, which I think is really cool. But like, if you needed the extra time, just throw something that would be fun, but is not super consequential to storylines. Put that on the pre-show from your quote unquote main roster, and have that happen at 5:45 or 5:30 when the show actually starts at 6. And that way you can cut things, like people who want to show up and watch a little bit more wrestling can. People who want to roll up at 6 o'clock and watch what's on the main card, they can. But again, it's a kind of a minor nitpick. I just think that they could easily trim a match or two off of their schedule and have a much more reasonable runtime for their events.
Yeah, just a tighter show. I mean, my overall impressions were the show was booked a little bit strangely, not a good flow. Some really good matches, good display of talent. Would I watch another WrestleCircus iPPV? Yeah, I would give them my $10 and watch another show. So when the Lucha show comes up or the June show comes up, I would advise people to lay down some $10 and give it a shot. See, once again, these are talents that you may not see all the time. So, expand your horizons and check out some other guys. In particular, if Leo Rush is on the show. If Leo Rush is on the show, go watch it. That's worth your $10 right there. But overall, a fine show. I wouldn't say it was great. I wouldn't even go as to say it's really good. I would say that it had its moments, it had its down times. But I would be willing to give them another shot to win over my full approval as we move forward. So that's sort of WrestleCircus Battle at the Big Top in a nutshell. So with that, look, we got some homework we got to get to before I send you on your way. I don't want to send you on another 2.5 hour extravaganza fair, whatever we called the last one before I went on hiatus. But look, this is the surprise portion of the show. I'm going to give you a spoiler alert right now. This is the surprise portion of the show. So last week, Thomas signed 2 other homeworks other than the 6-man tag. Number 1, OTT ScrapperMania, which was the Uptown Funkers versus the Elite. And the other homework was any Harley Race versus Dusty Rhodes match from whatever point in time. So here's what I did, okay? I went out, I got it. I'm going to play it for you for authenticity. No, actually, the batteries on that are dead. Okay, I have the American Dream, the Dusty Rhodes story DVD. Okay, I do own this. So I went in and I dug deep on this, and I actually watched 2 Dusty Rhodes versus Harley Race matches. Number 1, from December 17th, 1979 in Madison Square Garden for the NWA World Championship. And then also, that would be June 21st, 1981 from Atlanta, Georgia for the NWA World Championship. There were, look, if I never see another headbutt or elbow for the next 6 months, I will be so thankful after watching these. And look, you thought I would be in love with watching Harley Race and Dusty Rhodes because I kind of like that old school work the body part sort of mentality and layout of a match. Man, were these 2 lumbering matches to watch. And they weren't even that long, but they felt like forever.
So they really did fight forever.
I mean, they really felt like they were fighting forever. They were just so long. They were so slow. They weren't even methodical. They're just too slow, molasses-paced individuals. Look, and going back to the 70s, Dusty Rhodes, sell something, man. They were not fun to watch. They were not. So anytime Tom is like, just go back and watch a Dusty Rhodes Harley Race match, you tell him to go fuck himself. Because
don't do it.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. And look, these are two legends, and they put on classics at some point in the time. These two matches were not it. And you know, there were sleeper holds and headlocks galore. But it was a slog, man. It was not entertaining at all to dive into. But what was entertaining was ScrapperMania, the match that you thought I would hate the most. The Elite, Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks versus three guys who come to the ring dancing to Uptown Funk. How could you go wrong with this? You can't. It was so ridiculous that I could not help but give myself over to it. It was like watching a Jason Statham movie. It doesn't matter how dumb it may seem at times. You're like, screw it, I'm in. And I was in. I was in wholeheartedly in this match. I watched all like 25 or 30 minutes of it throughout. I watched the dance-off in the beginning. I watched the dance-off in the end. And I loved every goddamn second that I watched it.
Good. That's what I want to hear.
So let this be a lesson to everyone out there. Just go in with an open mind, because even if you think you may not like it, sometimes you can surprise even yourself. Now, look, I will say one thing. My one nitpick, and I know this is part of their shtick, so nobody's going to care, but would it kill the Young Bucks to maybe make the super kicks mean just a little something? 27 super kicks, at that point, you might as well just say it's like a regular kick. Like, it doesn't even hurt anybody. You're super kicking everybody. I understand super kick party is your thing. It's your brand, whatever. But when they're all just regular kicks, none of them are super. Not one of them are super.
You got a real affection for the Incredibles, don't you there, buddy?
But look, go watch this match. ScrapperMania. I had a good time with it. The Uptown Funkers, and once again, more Leo Rush. So, yeah, I enjoyed the hell out of this match, Tom. So in your face on that one.
In your face. I had a good time.
Yeah, in your
Take
face.
that back, sucker.
So in your face, I had a good time. OTT Wrestling, Over the Top Wrestling, out in Dublin, I believe. ScrapperMania, the Elite versus the Uptown Funkers. Seek it out. It's ridiculous. A lot of it is kind of stupid. But I can't see. Your heart has to be made of just complete and total darkness to not come away with that with a smile on your face. So there you have it. Okay. So Tom, what's on the homework for this week?
Okay, this is just a fun, good match to watch. It's going to involve part of the people we've been talking about recently. Well, you know what? I'll give an option. I'll give one of two. So we are currently involved, or we're currently knee deep, or maybe we're wading into, because it's about a month-long tournament, into the Best of the Super Juniors 2017, which is New Japan's tournament, much like the G1, but for the smaller guys. So you got, guys like Taguchi and Will Ospreay, Ricochet, and Dragon Lee, and all those people are basically having a round robin tournament where everyone wrestles everyone to determine who is the best of these Super Juniors. I believe we are either in night 2 or night 3 at this point. It's still relatively early in the tournament, but Will Ospreay has had 2 amazing matches. One against his longtime rival Marty Scurll, also out of England, who is competing in his first ever Battle of the Super Juniors. And he had a sequel to last year's, basically like atomic event with Ricochet. His second match was Will Ospreay versus Ricochet. Find both of those matches, because they're both great for differing reasons. Marty Scurll is definitely more of a mat-based submission guy, and Will Ospreay is not. And obviously the second match is just two of potentially the best high flyers in the world doing what they do better than anybody. So go find those matches, watch them both. New Japan Pro Wrestling is amazing. I will have a lot more to say about them when I see them live in a couple months for the crowning of the first ever New Japan Pro Wrestling or IWGP United States champion. That's going to be a lot of fun. But in the time being, what's hot in the wrestling world right now is Battle of the Super Juniors. So go watch Will Ospreay versus Marty Scurll, Will Ospreay versus Ricochet, and enjoy yourselves, y'all. Wrestling's for everybody. Fuck you, Randy Orton.
So there you go. And look, and I said we're going to talk a little bit just about WWE. Here's your small nugget. Lots of WWE this weekend to watch. UK special on WWE Network on Friday. NXT TakeOver Chicago on Saturday. Backlash on Sunday. Tom, is there anything on the WWE shows you're interested in off the top of your head?
No.
Okay. Quick. Look, I got one thing. Nakamura and Dolph Ziggler. I'm interested to see how the WWE crowd takes to Nakamura. That's what I'm interested in.
That's a lie. I won't be watching TakeOver because I have a concert that night in Austin that takes more precedence than watching something on television. But TakeOver should be interesting. There isn't a match on there that I think is like blowing my mind, but I'm excited for it. And again, with you, like this is Shinsuke's first televised match. Because he's had several on SmackDown and dark matches against Dolph Ziggler, but this is going to be his first televised match against Dolph Ziggler. And I got to say, like I don't really watch WWE that much anymore, but I do catch up with some of the YouTube clips of things that are important. And I think over in England was the first time that Shinsuke and Dolph kind of sort of went at it. Like they kind of had a physical confrontation. And man, some of Shinsuke's knees and kicks were looking brutal. Like he was looking like he was laying them suckers in. So I'm very excited to see him cut loose on an actual match because I don't think people are ready for strong style in the way he's going to bring it if they let him bring it the way he can bring it.
And I will say, having that match in Chicago, I don't think there's a better crowd that they could unleash him in front of. Because those people either hate it or they love it. And I think if you're going to put Shinsuke out there on full display, those people, those rabid fans in Chicago are the perfect people that you would want to get behind it. So, look.
Yeah,
Look, lots of wrestling to see here this week. So, hop on it.
Also, I got to tell you one more thing. I think that the Fashion Files are amazing.
Yes.
and I really hope Breezango gets some more attention because those backstage vignettes are hilarious.
Everybody knows how much I like Tyler Breeze. I love the guy, and I want to see him do more. They are making the most out of a horrible situation, or what seemed like a horrible situation. But look, hey, like they always say, make lemons into lemonade. And that's what you get from Beyonce. And apparently also the Fashion Files. Look, Tom Nix, follow him on Twitter at the Tom Nix, TheTomNix, at the Tom Nix. Make sure you follow him there. Follow me there as well at Infamous Kid, 2 D's at the end, at Infamous Kid. And you can follow this particular show as well at the IWC Show. So make sure you follow us there on Twitter at the IWC Show. Find us wherever you get your podcast from. Subscribe, like, and comment, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Blueberry, SoundCloud, TuneIn. We're on everywhere. So I don't know how you got here for this particular episode, but wherever podcasts are convenient for your gathering, you go ahead, subscribe, like, and comment, and we'll be there with you from now until forever. Be back next week. Tom will be here talking about something else. I don't know what it is yet, but we'll be getting to the Super Juniors next week from New Japan Pro Wrestling. We'll also be talking at length about Backlash as well as NXT TakeOver Chicago. So look, lots of wrestling. Get into it because it's going to be a hell of a wrestling week. I can feel it. I can just feel it. And that includes a match that has Jinder Mahal in it. So for Tom Nix, I've been your host, Billy Donnelly. This has been Intelligent Wrestling Conversation. We are out for now, and we'll see you back here next week. Peace. Intelligent Wrestling Conversation has been a podcast presentation of This Is Infamous.